Hi, hello, I'm Elle, and it is lovely to see you all back again. So, the topic of this video are skin. I guess we all have it, and some of you have been asking how I render it, so I thought I'd just do a quick little video on how I do that, and I also kind of thought that it was another chance that I could tackle a pose that I find tricky, which is looking up at the characters. So, without further ado, 1, 2, 3, here we go! So with a round brush, I just sort of pick a mid-tone brown and start blocking in the silhouette under my sketch layer. I try not to be too messy with it because it means that I have less cleanup to do later on. I try to make sure that the edges are as crisp as I can get them. So for obvious reasons, I decided to add a shirt, and then I picked a deeper brown just to start sculpting out the shapes of the character. I used the selection tool to help get a crisper line between the shadow under the neck and where the chin is. And then I just keep on sculpting with a deep sort of saturated brown. I like to start with the midtones and the shadows just because it helps to sort of sculpt and define the shapes of the character early on. For the purposes of this specific tutorial, I'm just going to be focusing on how I paint light skin. I paint dark skin in a similar sort of way, but there are certain differences between light and dark skin, the way that light reflects off it and the way that shadows react with it and different kind of colours and undertones. So I feel like a whole separate tutorial on painting dark skin is warranted here. It deserves the same amount of love and attention as how to paint light skin. And I didn't want to just shoehorn it in as if it was some kind of afterthought. When I'm selecting the lighter tones of the skin, I slide the hue across to a sort of yellower tone and then just bring it up a bit in terms of value and desaturate it a little bit and just start airbrushing over the top. And I just add those to the parts that stick out a little bit more, so the centre of the nose, the middle of the cheekbones, the chin, the shoulders, and the two spherical things on the chest called the boobs. And because we as humans have quite a bit of blood under our skin, I pick a more saturated reddish tone and airbrush it in on the lips, nose, ears, cheeks, shoulders, and the aforementioned spherical objects. And now it's time to turn my attention to two other spherical objects, the eyeballs. I know they call them the whites of the eyes, but if you actually colour pick from a photograph, you'll probably notice that the whites of the eyes aren't pure white. If you try and use a pure white colour to draw the eyeballs, it just often ends up looking wrong and out of place. In a lot of photographs, if you actually colour pick from an eyeball, it's probably going to be more of a desaturated blue, purple or yellow. And my tip for picking a colour for the whites of the eyes is to actually start with the skin colour and desaturate it a little bit and slide it towards the cooler tones. Then you can just use the HSB slider to kind of perfect it from there and make it look a lot more natural. For the pupils, I change the brush to a round brush and select a size that's roughly the size of a pupil, and then I just use the warp tools and liquify to move them into a position where it doesn't look weird. And because she's standing outside, the sky colour is actually going to bounce off her skin a little bit, so I've seen some people airbrush in a blue colour on top of the skin, but it looks kind of disconnected. What I tend to do is just slide the hue to maybe a red or a little bit of a purplish colour, desaturate it, make it a little bit lighter in value, and against the warmer colour of the skin, that desaturated sort of warm tone actually looks cool in comparison. Something that I've been adding recently just because I think it looks really good is a warm bounce light coming from under the character. So the bounce light's going to hit under the brow ridge, the bottom of the eyes, the bottom of the ears, and around the mouth and the chin. But it's more of a personal taste thing. You don't have to add it, I just personally think that it looks good. And then I add in some eyelashes because it was just kind of starting to look a little bit weird without them. And because I was starting to feel like the skin was a little bit dull, I clipped a hard light layer on top of the skin and just brushed in a sort of desaturated skin tone on top. So I just started mucking around with the airbrush a lot more to bring in some different tones and colours to the skin. I warmed up the bottom of the face, put some pink sort of undertones on the cheeks, and used that desaturated cool tone red to add a little bit more of that sky bouncing off the tops of her cheeks and the bridge of her nose. But the problem with using so much airbrush is that things just become undefined again, and so it was time to go in with the round brush and just start making things look a lot crisper again. The reason that I really enjoy using the round brush at this stage is because you can get a softer or a harder sort of edge on it depending on how hard you push down onto the screen if you have pen pressure sensitivity on your tablet. And the reason that it's really important to put some hard edges back in is because if you leave things too airbrushed, it just ends up looking really blurry, especially when you upload it to social media and whatever you're uploading it to just decompresses the image anyway and just gets rid of even more of the defined edges that you've worked so hard to put in. So you might have already noticed that this character doesn't have any hair yet, and that's because I'm going to do a whole separate video on how I draw hair. I thought that it was only natural that if I'm going to do a tutorial on how to draw skin, I might as well also do one on how I draw hair, and possibly even clothing and finishing touches like magic and special effects. So yeah, look forward to that in the future. And this is the stage that I'm actually going to leave it at for now. Once I draw the hair in, there are probably some changes that I'm going to want to make to the skin, but I'll add that into a tutorial on how I finish off my pieces. So yeah, that's it. And if you have any more questions about how I render skin, feel free to drop them down in the comments. I'm going away for a couple of days to visit family, but I will try my best to answer as many as I can. Thank you for watching, and until next time, bye!